All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back from the dead, sort of. Definitely gonna need this. All right, so we've been on death's door for the last 3 days, but today I'm feeling a little better, which is good, a lot better. And the biggest thing in the world of golf happened yesterday. Probably the biggest thing ever. The PGA Tour and LIV Golf, along with DP World Tour, announced a merger between the arch enemies, the arch rivals. Micah Morris and Good announced a merger. It's basically what happened here if we're relating to YouTube golf. Now, I know this isn't YouTube golf, so I don't know how many of you are going to be interested in this, but I mean, if you watch professional golf at all, you're going to be interested in this. So we're going to go into it. I want to talk about my reactions and my thoughts to it, but I figured I'm going to do it in a way that's kind of also related to one of the most interesting reactions and opinions of mine, which is Rory McIlroy. So I've got a 14-minute interview here from him. We're going to listen to the whole thing. We're going to react to it together. And I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions along the way because there's a lot to unpack here. And I'm a huge Rory guy. He was at the forefront of this whole thing. He was kind of spearheading the anti-LIV campaign, and this arguably has hurt him the most. So it's going to be interesting to hear what he has to say. So sit back, relax, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it.
Yesterday's news, I guess, how and where were you when you received it, and how did it make you feel?
How and where were you when you received it? It's like everyone, excuse me, this is going to happen a lot today. Everyone's going to remember where they were and what they were doing at this moment when this news got announced, especially Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, so I got a text message on Monday night, I guess, from Jimmy Dunn saying, hey, can I give you a call in the morning? So I said, sure. Jimmy rang me at about 6:30 yesterday morning. We had a chat, took me through the news, took me through the deal, the structure of the deal, what it meant for us, what it meant for the DP World Tour. So yeah, I learned about it pretty much at the same time everyone else did.
All right, so a little bit of context there in case you missed it. None of the pros knew about this beforehand. They all found out literally on the announcement like we did. Like the CNBC thing was like how like Colin Morikawa found out and how Brooks Koepka found out, and apparently how Greg Norman found out. I think Greg Norman might have got a call in the morning like Rory, but like they had no hand in this. This was like Jay Monahan and like the Saudi investment fund. They just did this behind the scenes, so no pros knew, and they all found out over Twitter. That's why I think a lot of them are pissed.
It was a surprise. I knew there had been discussions going on in the background. I knew that lines of communication had been opened up. I obviously didn't expect it to happen as quickly as it did. But I really think that, you know, from what I gathered, the tour felt they were in a real position of strength coming off the back of the DP World winning their legal case in London.
That's interesting because a lot of what I was kind of thinking, this actually was a narrative that Foreplay talked about, so credit to them. But I thought and was kind of guessing the PGA Tour did this out of position of like assumed weakness because they had all their lawsuits going on with LIV that if they were to lose them, basically the LIV players were going to be able to stay with LIV, keep all their money, and just come back and play on the PGA Tour, and there'd be no upside for the PGA Tour. So the PGA Tour saw that and was like, we have to make a deal because otherwise, we're going to be left out of any upside from this. There's going to be nothing to gain if we just lose these court cases. So I think they must have really, I personally think they must have been in a real state of like, we're about to lose these court cases and let's do something to like better our upside from it. So I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Weakened the other side's position, and you know, they went in there, and you know the way Jimmy described it, you know, Rory, sometimes you got 280 over water and you just got to go for it, and you know that's what they did. And you know, I think ultimately when I try to remove myself from the situation and I look at the bigger picture and I look at 10 years down the line, you know, I think ultimately this is going to be it's going to be good for the game of professional golf. I think it secures it unifies it, and it secures its financial future. So you know, there's mixed emotions in there as well, as there's going to be. I don't understand all the intricacies of what's going on. It's a very what's the word? You know, there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of things still to be sort of thrashed out. But At least it means that the litigation goes away, which has been a massive burden for everyone that's involved with the tour and that's playing the tour. And we can start to work toward, some sort of way of unifying the game at the elite level.
I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting, right? Like, this guy was the poster boy for anti-LIV and for, the future of golf and the future of golf needing to be preserved and needing to be put first. And now all of a sudden you have him saying that this ultimately he thinks is going to be good for the future of golf, which is a complete different direction than he was pushing before for the future of golf. So, I mean, his hands are tied. He's in this situation. He can't change the situation. So I'm sure part of this is like trying to see the silver lining and trying to like, just look at it as like, well, this is the reality. So we're going to have to move forward now. I don't think if you would have given him an objective look at this beforehand, he would have been like, yeah, let's do that because it's going to be better for the game of golf in the future. I think he's saying that now because he knows it's the reality. He doesn't have a choice. So it's interesting.
Adam on the left.
Rory, has over the last day with the different meetings and the conversations you've had with players, has your opinion changed at all? Have you sort of started to see where this is all going? And are you excited about this? Are you optimistic about this? Kind of as you project it forward, what do you?
Yeah. So I mean, I think the one thing that I think was really misconstrued yesterday was all the headlines were PGA Tour merges with LIV, and LIV has got nothing to do with this, right? I mean, it's the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and the Public Investment Fund are basically partnering to create a new company. This has gotten, I think that's where I was a little frustrated because all I've wanted to do and all I've wanted, in the past year from basically this tournament is to protect the future of the PGA Tour and protect the aspirational nature of what the PGA Tour stands for. And I hope that this does that, but, I think with the headlines being merges with LIV, like that's not if you look at the structure of how it's structured down, this new company sits above everything. Jay's the CEO of that. So technically, anyone that is involved with LIV now would answer to Jay.
That's interesting. So we haven't gotten a lot of details from this. Like, there hasn't been a lot released other than just that CNBC thing. And even in that, the head of the PIF or the whatever, the Saudi money guy, he even said, he's like, yeah, maybe in like 2 weeks we'll have all the details ironed out. Like, they don't even have the details ironed out yet. So it's interesting to hear this from Rory. Didn't know that Jay was going to be the CEO of this new company, this new entity that's basically going to run the money and the decisions for all these. So that's good, I guess. But it is a merger with LIV. The LIV guys are going to be able to play on the PGA Tour. That's what we're hearing. So, I don't know. That's like a little like being bitter for sure. I mean, how can you blame him? This guy was the biggest anti-LIV guy. This guy was so... I don't know. You can't take back a lot of stuff he said, man. When he won the Canadian Open last year, the trashing of Greg Norman on the 18th green. You can't take that back.
Have control of everything. And the one thing as well is, whether you like it or not, the PIF are going to keep spending money in golf. At least the PGA Tour now controls how that money is spent. So if you're thinking about one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world, would you rather have them as a partner or an enemy? At the end of the day, money talks, and you'd rather have them as a partner.
Given that the DOJ was already looking into the PGA Tour for antitrust violations and all that, how much of an uphill battle do you think this is going to be to push this through going forward now that the two sides have kind of come together and are operating together here?
That's way above my pay grade. I have no idea how the Department of Justice operates. I have not been involved in any of those discussions, and it would be very silly and naive of me to comment on that.
All right, we'll go to Lucas right here on the aisle.
Hi, Rory. I know it's early, but how does an announcement like this impact tournaments like the Canadian Open, for example, one of the storied events on the PGA Tour?
I mean, I feel bad for RBC and the Canadian Open to think about what went on this time last year and then the bombshell that was dropped. I mean, RBC have been one of the biggest supporters of the PGA Tour over the last 10 years. They, this year they're supporting a designated event at Hilton Head. they're sponsoring their national open. They're pouring tens of millions of dollars into the PGA Tour that the players obviously benefit from. So I feel bad because, being such a great partner and having this stuff sort of dropped on you 2 years in a row is very unfair. As to what it looks like going forward, I'd like to say that things don't change. I'd like to think that the Canadian Open keeps on thriving, and just like every other event on the PGA Tour. And, I think the PGA Tour are hopefully going to announce their 2024 schedule here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And, I don't think I don't expect that to change.
That'll be interesting. That was like one of the first things I was kind of not concerned about, but just like curious about, was like, yeah, how is it actually going to affect the day-to-day on the PGA Tour? How's it actually going to affect, what's going on within the tour? And I think very much so, the reality is that the events are likely going to stay the same. The events are likely not going to be changed. The only difference is there's likely going to be an avenue for players from LIV and whatever to get on. But I think it's going to go back to the way it was. Like, DP World Tour players theoretically could play in PGA Tour events if they were qualified. They could go to a Monday qualifier. They could have an exemption. They could whatever, get on and play. I think it's going to be the same thing for LIV players. If you're, Brooks Koepka or Phil Mickelson and you have, either a lifetime status or whatever, that's going to be reinstated and they're just going to be able to play. But I don't see much changing. Maybe some more international events. It'd be really hilarious if they had an event in Saudi. Really funny. A designated event in Saudi. That'd be hilarious.
Another one on the right here.
Rory Simon Dingley from CBC News. We heard there was a lot of anger in the clubhouse yesterday in the meeting with the commissioner. Do you still have confidence in Jay Monahan as commissioner of the PGA?
Yeah, I do.
I gotta stop you right there, Rory. That is just, that's one of the big takeaways here. This guy is a chooch. Like, Jay Monahan is a chooch. That's evident, man. And I just think, again, how, to the death we're gonna fight LIV. To the death we're gonna fight Saudi money. To the death. He made them out to be the absolute devil. The absolute Antichrist, 9/11 families, that whole deal. Jay Monahan stood on a freaking, pillar and screamed it to the world that these guys are murderers, these guys are whatever. And now you're just all of a sudden, happy about a partnership and it's the best thing for the game of golf and going, at the end of the day, Jay Monahan, if this guy stays, nobody's ever going to have confidence in him. Nobody's ever going to have, full respect for this guy again. He was already a bit of a joke. This guy is the biggest joke. So, of course Rory's going to say this. He's partnered. He's part of the PGA Tour advisory board, whatever. But it's also his boss, sort of. So he's not going to talk bad about him. But the guy's a joke. The guy's an absolute joke. Jay Monahan.
And look, I've dealt with Jay a lot closer than a lot of those guys have. And from where we were a couple of weeks ago to where we are today, I think the future of the PGA Tour looks brighter as a whole, as an entity. What that looks like for individual players in terms of keeping a tour card and, bringing players back into the fold, and then that, sacrifices other people. That's where the anger comes from, right? And I understand that, and there still has to be consequences to actions. The people that left the PGA Tour irreparably harmed this tour, started litigation against it. We can't just welcome them back in. That's not going to happen. And I think that was the one thing that Jay was trying to get across yesterday, is guys, we're not just going to bring these guys back in and pretend like nothing's happened. That is not going to happen.
Yeah, but I kind of think it will. I kind of think they're not going to have a choice. These guys, I've seen all the conversations, Hideki being offered, a Tiger level offer because he's the biggest player in Asia, and Asia's the biggest market for golf by population. Hideki turned down $750 million, and now all of a sudden Phil Mickelson, who took $200, is going to be able to just come back and play, and they're just going to be up all that money. I think there is talk that there's going to be some sort of reparation to that, and they're going to have to pay some sort of fee or penalty, but like, there's no way they're going to make them give them $100 million or whatever. Like, it's going to be something relatively nominal compared to the amount they took. So it's going to still feel like they're doing nothing for it. So I don't know. That'll be interesting, but it's funny to hear him say that.
I do have confidence in him. I think you ask the people around him that deal with him in a business sense, whether it's the directors of the board of the PGA Tour or the title sponsors that he deals with. I mean, he seems to be a very impressive individual when it comes to business.
Second question. I know you and many other golfers were offered substantial amounts of money to join LIV.
I was never offered any money.
My apologies. Should the golfers who maybe stayed loyal and turned down LIV, should they be made whole financially?
I mean, the simple answer is yes. The complex answer is how does that happen? Right? And that's all gray area and up in the air at the minute. But yeah, there's, it's hard for me to not sit up here and feel somewhat like a sacrificial lamb and, feeling like I've put myself out there and this is what happens. Again, removing myself from the situation, I see how this is better for the game of golf. There's no denying that. But for me as an individual, yeah, there's just going to have to be conversations that are had.
Listen, I fully get that, and I think a lot of the players are rightfully going to be super pissed because, like, if they turn down, let's say $100 million, like, I get it, they're already rich. Like, a lot of the players that are getting offered that are already millionaires, but, like, there's a difference between having $10 million and having $100 million or having $750 million like Hideki. Like, that is your life. Like, you could just go buy a yacht and buy a private plane, and like, you're just a completely different level of rich when you're getting close to that like $1 billion level. And that's literally what some of these guys were talking about. So like, the fact that now they're just gonna have to, like, they made their moral decision and they're just gonna have to live with the fact that everyone who didn't make that moral decision, who took the money, is now just gonna be back in the same pool as they are. And they're just like, well, we just didn't get that money. It didn't get us anywhere, and we just didn't get the money. And now that, like, that's crazy.
Jason and then John on the left.
Rory, you mentioned that this has really nothing to do with LIV Golf, but do you foresee you and other PGA Tour players having to play some sort of team events moving forward into the fall, or a series of them?
So I think Yasser is very... So the PGA Tour are already doing their own sort of team thing, right? We're going to do TGL, which is, it's not on a golf course, but it's a team type of event, and it's an entertainment product, and that stuff was already starting to happen, but it was very delineated, right? So you had like proper competitive golf like we're playing this week, and you have more entertainment type of golf that you get more into the team atmosphere, and you bring tech into it, and it's a more made for TV type of deal. I would say an element of team golf might still stay. It certainly, in my opinion and my hope, is it won't be under the LIV umbrella. It's something that the PGA Tour will control, the PGA Tour will operate, and it will hopefully look very different to what LIV has been.
Second question, how much of a distraction is this as you try to go and win this tournament 3 times in a row?
Yesterday was tough. I think the shock of it, the surprise of it, I wasn't looking forward to this, to be honest with you. But, once we all get done here and you write your stories and say what I say or quote me or whatever it is, I'm going to go to the range and do some practice and try to get ready for a golf tournament.
John.
Hey, Rory. John Chidley-Hill from the Canadian Press. A lot of fans are upset at this news. The war of words between the PGA Tour and LIV got very heated, and fans got very involved. What do you say to fans who are disappointed in this deal?
But it's not LIV. I think that's the thing. I still hate LIV. Like, I hate LIV. Like, I hope it goes away, and I would fully expect that it does. And I think that's where the distinction here is. This is the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, and the PIF. Very different from LIV. All I've tried to do is protect what the PGA Tour is and what the PGA Tour stands for, and I think it will continue to to do that. So look, going forward, I hope that there's, there may be a team element. And
I think we're going to see the same redaction, the same awkward walking back on words that's happening right here from how much he thought LIV was just going to die and be nothing. Like, they're now partnered with the PGA Tour. I know he's saying it's not LIV, but the Saudi money is LIV. And they're now partners. And so him now saying that he thinks LIV is just going to, again, go away and be nothing and whatever. They're partnering with Saudi, not LIV. LIV is the Saudi product. Like, that's the Saudi money product. That's the whole reason this whole thing is happening. If LIV wasn't started, none of this would be happening. The Saudi money would not, at least not in this way, be taking over the PGA Tour. It's hilarious to me. It's hilarious to me that he's still talking about it like this. Like, I get it, but bro, like, you gotta wake up and smell the roses. Like, this LIV is going to be a part of this thing, and I don't think the Saudis are getting rid of it, because why would they? It's their product. So I think it's going to be pretty funny if we see Rory playing in like a 4 Aces uniform a couple times a year. That'd be funny.
Play in some sort of team golf, but I don't think it'll look anything like LIV has looked, and I think that's a good thing. I said it to Jay yesterday, you've galvanized everyone against something, and that thing that you galvanized everyone against, you've now partnered with. So, yeah, of course I understand it. It is hypocritical. It sounds hypocritical. The one thing I would say is, again, whether you like it or not, the PIF and the Saudis want to spend money in the game of golf. It is, they want to do this, and they weren't going to stop. So how can we, the thing for me, and this is one thing that I've always thought about, how can we get that money into the game but use it the right way? And I think that's what this ultimately will do, hopefully. I mean, that's my hope.
All right, well, there you have it. That's his hope. Listen, my first reactions to this were obviously gobsmacked, like most of you guys. It's very surprising, but like he said in this interview, money talks, right? And like, these guys just have an unlimited bankroll. They have an unlimited amount of money compared to what the PGA Tour had, and compared to what really anyone who ever had showed interest in the PGA Tour had. Now, was the PGA Tour in a place of struggle? We don't know. Like, this to me maybe is telling of that. Maybe they were going outside of their comfort zone with these, designated events and with the payouts, and they were putting out a bit more money than they could actually afford to do in order to try to compete with LIV. So this was a bit of a saving grace. Like, to me, it's like the only reason, like, LIV wasn't going to overtake the PGA Tour in popularity probably ever. Maybe globally, but in America anyways, where the PGA Tour's main audience is, like, nobody was tuning into LIV over, a actual good PGA Tour event. And so I don't think they saw that as the threat. I think it was just, it must have just been from a position of weakness. Like, I don't care what Rory says. I don't think the PGA Tour would have done this if it wasn't them being in some sort of compromised position. And that's just my opinion. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button. Comment your thoughts down below. I'll see you in the next one.